Let me set a scene for you. So, last night, it was last night, I was in a call with my friend Alex, and I was sharing my screen, my browser, because we were watching stuff, listening to stuff together. And while just watching some random bullshit, I happened to see in my recommended a little YouTube video. This video is titled Portrait of God, a short film by a user named Dylan Clark. I hope I'm saying that right because I was looking at it like 10 seconds ago. I'll be linking the video in the description anyway, so, and I went, Alex, you need to see this. That's just kind of what's got this on my brain, because I rewatched the film recently and was still like, yeah, this is peak shit. This is cinema. And it got me thinking about another little piece of, I guess you'd call it horror media, called When Science Found God, which was posted on r/nosleep by I don't know who. It'll be in the description as well. So before I continue any further, I'm going to strongly recommend, if you have like any taste for horror, that you watch Portrait of God and read or listen to, like I did, When Science Found God, because I think they're just really, really good pieces. And the main allure for me is that they are exactly what I want to see in cosmic horror. So, I don't think this is something I've shared here on this little channel, but I am quite fascinated with horror. I think a lot of people are. I know that's not anything like new. Who cares? I don't need to justify myself. Horror is fucking cool. And I mean, granted, I need to experience more of it. Like when I say favorite pieces of cosmic horror, I'm, admittedly not picking from a large swath of media. I have read some Lovecraft. No. I've read some Lovecraft. And if it tells you anything, I can't think of too many other examples. Oh, right. There was this, I guess you could call it horror movie that a friend and I watched together because, I had her over and it's like, hey, we should watch a horror movie. And we pull up a list on the Plex and she's like, I've seen all of these. We found the only one that she hadn't seen that I thought sounded intriguing, and it was kind of all right, and it would probably qualify as cosmic horror, I guess. I think it would. Because, well, okay, so I guess the first thing I can do here is I can try to land on what exactly cosmic horror means. Because it's pretty much unavoidable that when you bring up that term, you're going to be thinking of or hearing about H.P. Lovecraft. And the whole idea behind Lovecraft's brand of horror is that, like, well, part of the brand of his horror is racism, but the other brand of it is I want to say the fear of the unknown, but that applies to basically anything, any kind of horror. It's like something more specific that I'm trying to put my finger on. It's like cosmic horror is kind of trying to capture the feeling that you get when you look up into the night sky and try to, like, conceptualize how small you are. That's like a really fucking pretentious way of putting it, I guess. The whole idea behind those aren't screams of horror as far as I'm aware, but we can say they're setting the mood. The whole idea behind Lovecraft's monsters is that the mere existence of the thing is what's horrifying, because it completely shatters one's previous perception of reality. Like, Lovecraft's monsters are so horrifying because we have this idea that the world is a relatively simple and rational place, you know, where science has discovered basically anything meaningful that we need to know, you know, given us the idea that we've shined a light on basically every mystery in the universe, and grants us this like illusion of safety, this comfort in quote unquote knowing that, like, you know, we are the most powerful and rational beings in the universe and will remain that way for the foreseeable future. The horror of Lovecraft's monsters is that they rip away that conception all at once. They make anybody who lays eyes on them feel powerless, not only physically but like intellectually, almost. Like, again, it shatters your worldview. And I think that is like still a very, very big component of cosmic horror. And I think that, you know, just that given to, I guess you could say, like, more tangible entities, I'd still classify that as cosmic horror. I think the idea is, like, again, connecting it back to the idea of looking up into space and thinking of how small you are. Like, cosmic horror, I guess I'll put it this way. Like, a slasher film is supposed to make you, or make, you know, the protagonist or whatever, feel powerless in a very immediate and visceral way. Like, usually in a slasher film, there's little that you can do to stop this monster or this person or this villain, whatever. Whereas cosmic horror gives you a more, like, permanent and more, I guess you could say, like, philosophical or intellectual feeling of powerlessness, because, you know, the fact of Cthulhu's existence may not necessarily put you in immediate physical danger, but, you know, knowing that it exists, knowing that at any time it could wake up and flip reality on its head, do God knows what, is, like, mortally terrifying. So what I'm saying is that nuclear bombs are cosmic horror. You know? And so, you know, using Cthulhu as an example, Cthulhu is so scary, you know, in the mythos, and, you know, maybe it's scary to you, viewer, having the knowledge that it's a fictional creature, because it's so tremendously powerful and so ancient and so far removed from what we understand about the world. but it is still like a thing that you can see and I suppose touch. Because from what I remember about the brief summaries of the Call of Cthulhu that I've heard, someone rams a ship into it. And I can't imagine it did a lot of damage, but you know, there's a physical body there that you can like interact with. Probably doesn't help you too much. Probably doesn't provide much comfort if you're, you know, looking at it. But it is a physical thing, and that's the case for a lot of Lovecraft's entities, as far as I'm aware. What that isn't the case for is God. It somehow only occurred to me as I was putting the two titles like next to each other there, that both of them have God in the title. Whoa, crazy. Because okay, I'm not gonna pretend I'm like familiar with other religions. I'm familiar with, you know, American teachings, Western teachings of Christianity. And so I'm familiar with teachings of the Bible that have God as just like an ethereal entity who is pretty far removed from, I guess you could say, baseline reality. Like the whole thing with Jesus is that he's like almost an extension of God put in the physical world. And I know in like most interpretations, Jesus is his own distinct thing, you know, Father, Son, and Holy Trinity. There's a lot of you know, stuff to talk about and study when it comes to the Bible and how exactly God works. But like, I guess what I'll say is that back when I did believe in God, my understanding of him from the teachings that I had as a wee little guy is that you couldn't like touch him or see him or interact with him in any physical way. Any interaction you had with him would be spiritual. And there's, you want to talk about intellectual, you know, there's this idea that spirituality and intellectualism clash. And I don't know if I'm gonna like speak on that at all. Like, I guess I'll just like say off the cuff, I don't think I agree. Like, I don't believe in God, of course, but I also think you can believe in God and be a very intelligent person. Anyway, sorry, I'm putting gloves on. It's quite chilly, despite it being the middle of May. But, you know, whatever. So, professional production. I guess just what I'm trying to get at here is that, like, you could consider God a cosmic horror entity if you wish. I mean, the Bible itself says that, well, okay, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people say that you should fear God. And, you know, if you read the Old Testament, they kind of have a point. Like, it's funny. I've heard people say that, like, oh yeah, we're Christian, but like, you know, the Old Testament, that's some whack stuff. Because in fairness, there is some whack stuff in the Old Testament. For example, God is like very different, depicted very differently in the Old Testament than he is in the New Testament, which I know has given rise to the theory of God's ego death, which is a whole other fucking thing. I am atheist or agnostic or whatever the fuck, but I do find elements of like religion fascinating. And you know, hey, part of that might be because of my upbringing, but also these are some pretty neat concepts. There's a lot of like history and culture to learn about, and also I like cosmic horror, so you know. Sorry, the road next to me is busy, but you know, if you're a frequent visitor here, I'm sure you don't mind. At least it's not windy. Shit, I lost it. Fuck. I lost my train of thought. God damn it. I just, yeah, okay, God was like wrathful. He wiped out 99.9% of human civilization because he felt that we were rotten sinners. You know, there's the pillar of salt. I know there's this one parable of the devil saying like, hey, you know, if this fucking guy in particular really believes in you, then you can like ruin his fucking life 5 times over and he'll still believe in you, but I bet he won't because you're a fucking little bitch. And so God does it. You know, talking about God as an entity removed from reality, all powerful and all knowing, you'd think that challenges to his ego wouldn't really work, but apparently they do, or did, I suppose, in the Old Testament. Hey, ego death, So, like, it has been said that God is someone to be feared. And, you know, in fairness, I think there is some reason to be a little bit afraid of a being that controls all of reality, right? Or if not controls, like had the power to create it. And so, we arrive at God is cosmic horror. You know, I think that's a statement that you can make just on its face. You don't need any extra material to do that. You can just look at the Bible and go, oh, holy shit. You can think about, you can ruminate on the concept of God for a few minutes and go, holy shit. But it's also really cool when stories take the concept of God and really accentuate the horror of such a concept. So, hopefully by this point, you've consumed the 2 recommended pieces of media. Not the Bible. You know, you can read that if you want, I guess. Like, I guess you could read probably the most important work of writing in Western civilization. You could read the, I think, most sold book ever, and also the most stolen book. But I was mainly talking about Portrait of God and When Science Found God. And I guess just what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about these 2 pieces and trying to express what I love about them so much. So, starting with Portrait of God. Already, I'm looking ahead to what my thoughts are going to be. And so I'm just going to preface that, like, a lot of this is going to be just me saying, like, yeah, it's just really cool. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, for example, just, to get this out of the way, I think that Portrait of God on a technical level is just pretty damn good. I don't know. I think I want to give it more props than that. It's great. It's, a short piece, and it's, well, I can't say it wasn't technically challenging, because there's some stuff that I know they would have had to do that would have taken some work. And there's clearly a lot of very talented artists behind this project. Like, the fact that everything is so dark, I mean, it's obvious, but like, you want a good balance between darkness and clarity, and there's a very, very good balance there. You can always tell what's going on, but at the same time, you can't always see what you wish you could see. So, okay. The first thing that comes to mind is, the gal in the beginning brings up the Portrait of God on the slide, and what we see initially is just nothing. Like, the slide is just pure black. She even puts a white frame over it, and it's like there's still nothing there. That's terrific. I don't even know how to explain it. That's just so well. Okay, so I mean, there you go. I don't know what to say. I just think that's really effective right off the bat. Just this idea that it is, to most viewers, a just blank black canvas, but knowing that to some people they see something in it. I think that plays really well into the idea, the fact that pretty much everybody has a slightly different idea of what God even is or would look like. And so, if you were to ask a bunch of people to draw a portrait of God, a lot of them would make something different, right? But now I'm thinking about what about the person who painted the Portrait of God? What was he thinking? And, if we just remove the notion that there's something in the painting that only some people see, like a black canvas, I don't know, that's probably about as good as you're gonna get if we're really trying to imagine what a omnipotent being would look like, which is a contradiction, because I don't think a being like God would look like anything. I know in the Bible that there's at least a couple ways that God chooses to present himself. The one that immediately leaps to mind is the burning bush. But the way I interpret it is that that's not actually God. It's just his means of presenting himself, And so if you were to try to paint a portrait of God, he's a completely unknowable entity. You're not going to be able to really make out or see anything. So a black canvas, yeah, that's about as good of a representation as you're realistically going to get. And there's also the idea that by just painting a black canvas and having people see something in it, that's kind of what you could say that's kind of how faith works. The gal who ends up seeing something in the portrait, is wearing a rosary, so she's a Christian. She starts praying later, probably a Christian. And, you know, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that people who believe in God are primed to see evidence of him, right? Like, what is a coincidence or something very lucky happening to someone who's agnostic would be a miracle or an act of God to a Christian. And so, hell, in the real world, I genuinely wonder if you could just paint a black canvas, title it Portrait of God, put it up on display, and see if, like, believers in God would say that they see something in the canvas. And that isn't me calling Christians stupid, because they're not. Like, these days, I often consider faith and intelligence as just kind of separate things, to be honest. Like, there is a lot of ignorance amongst religious folk, but like, I don't see that as a consequence of them being taught religion. I see that as a consequence of them being taught religion and little else, or being taught propaganda with religion as a vessel, you know? And that's the basis of it, really. Like, we all have different perceptions of things based on our life experiences and our beliefs, and, you know, Christians are no different, or any other religious person. I just mainly talk about Christians because I was a Christian at one point, and so were a lot of the people that I've known in my life. This is just the premise, by the way. Black canvas titled Portrait of God. All right, that's a lot. Then there's also cool little details that you get before, you know, the moment. Before I talk about that, I'm gonna hit a quick little sippy, if you don't mind. Baller. All right. So, you know, when do I call it the entity, or do I call it God? It's like, there's an implication that it's God, or, you know, a manifestation of him. There's an implication of that. I'll just call it God. Before God, like, really fully makes his appearance is marked by two tiny white dots in the canvas, which you eventually see to be his eyes. Before even that reveal, for a pretty extended duration, when you're getting the, like, view of this gal's face, off to the left you can see two little white dots. And, you know, initial viewing, or just not really paying much attention, your mind could just register that as, like, lights that are part of the room, because, you know, it is a dark room, but there's a projector, there's some other little lights on behind her. Like, it fits with the background. But at a certain point, those lights do disappear. And then I think this one is easier to spot if you're paying attention. But after she's done with her first, like, practice run of the slideshow, she goes back through the slides and you see the slide of the portrait for a split second, but God is just in it. You can see it for the split second that it's on screen. Pretty good. And I just remembered the, like, maybe you'd call them interview clips that she plays. There's some interesting stuff in there. Some of the dialogue is maybe a tad bit corny, but I'm definitely not gonna like hold it to hold it to the creators or whatever. There's one line in particular. A woman says something like, and it's frightening, but you know, God should be frightening, shouldn't he? It's like, yeah, I agree. And also, part of the point of this gal making the presentation is that it's just interesting how, you know, a lot of us can't see, a lot of us can't see anything in the portrait, but a lot of these descriptions that people have of what's in the portrait are very consistent. Like the physical description of what God looks like. And, you know, that's pretty interesting. One of the ways that people try to corroborate the legitimacy of not even just religious experiences, but any supernatural experiences, saying like, hey, look, this matches up with a bunch of other descriptions or whatever. Like, the more people are saying the same thing, the more legitimate the claim, you know? But of course, this could just be a result of, you know, maybe they only interviewed like evangelical Christians in the United States, in which case we were all given a pretty similar idea of what God is like. So it wouldn't be crazy for people to see similar things or perceive similar things. And of course, you know, then the thing happens. This lady giving the presentation, she gets to the slide and she pauses because, hey, now she's seeing something. Now, but what? Okay. So, you know, what you see in the film is this basically like almost typical horror thing happening. Like, she sees God in the portrait finally, and she seems filled with a mix of curiosity and awe. But she seems to be pretty frightened at a certain point, because she moves to lift up the projector screen. Not the move I would have made. I would have gone for the lights personally, but you know, she lifts the projector screen, but oh, the thing is still there, and it turns its head to look at her. Ooh. And she bolts out the door, and you do see light beyond it, but the moment she closes it, she's enclosed in darkness. And well, okay, I know I do this thing where I like summarize a piece of media that I've told you to go watch, so I guess I probably don't need to do that. You know what happens, ideally. You better know what happens. You better have watched it. So I guess I'll just say it's really cool that the hand that, like, I guess you could say take hold of her chin seemingly comes out of nowhere. It doesn't seem directly attached to the entity in front of her. That's pretty fucking cool. It gives you the sense that this is like an entity removed from reality. You know, it doesn't abide by our basic understanding of, you know, logic or physical reality. You know, it looks like it would have hands at the end of the arms that are just kind of dangling there, but with no movement from those arms, a hand reaches out to touch her, and it's weird and creepy and awesome. And God, what else? Like, there's, I guess the only other thing I could say is, wow, yeah, that ending. There's a lot to talk about, isn't there? Immediately, I guess we can say, like, so, what did she see inside of God's mouth? I mean, who fucking knows? It could be another burning bush, to be honest. Like, you know, maybe God here has some understanding that if humans lay eyes on him and get an idea of what he physically looks like, they'll be fucking horrified. That's, you know, kind of the idea behind the biblically accurate angels, but I'll put some quotation marks around that. You know, they come down from the heavens and say, be not afraid. And with the depictions that we've started to become a little more accustomed to, or aware of, I guess, you know, there may be reason to be afraid. Like, okay, so I'm no biblical scholar, but I've been hearing some counters to this idea that, like, the fucking winged wheels with 1,000 eyes that are also on fire, I've been hearing that those would not be what came down from the heavens to tell the 3 wise men that the Messiah had been born, you know? Part of why I kind of like hearing about stuff from the Bible, even though I'm agnostic, is because hearing about, like, the descriptions of the angels and hearing people wax about how, like, strange and unknowable they are is just cool to me, because I like cosmic horror. And so maybe you got that kind of thing going on. Maybe the light in God's mouth is his be not afraid. Like, you know, as he is presented to a human, he looks horrifying, but then that light is the burning bush saying, I am here, displaying his power and his glory, you know. And like, if a person were to actually behold God in all of his power and glory, they probably would be completely fucking dumbstruck, yeah. And they probably would stand there, stare.
Closed ahead. Use pedestrian crossing. Sidewalk closed ahead. Use pedestrian crossing. Sidewalk closed ahead. Use pedestrian crossing.
So, Jesus fucking Christ. There's a little barricade here on the sidewalk. It does say sidewalk closed, you know. But I was curious. I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just see what's up with this sidewalk. Perchance see why it's closed. What I didn't see on this barricade is a fucking speaker attached to it that'll talk at you if you get close. Holy shit. I had a mini heart attack there. Okay, fine. Fine, I'll fucking turn around. Jeez. You know what? The sidewalk is closed, but this grass on the other side of the road sure ain't. Like, I don't know. Like, the sign is doing its fucking job. It's making me think, oh, maybe I should turn around, but I don't see how there'd be any immediate danger here unless I'm walking into, like, I don't know, a fucking SCP site or whatever. In which case, they'd probably put up something more resilient than a single barricade that you could walk around. Anyway, it's the ending of that film that I think really fucking sells it for me. Where they just fucking nail it. Because, you know, you're seeing her seeing this light. Already it's like, you know, this is all right, but we've seen this kind of thing. Do you think that TADC was inspired by this short? There's a good chance that they weren't, because this is a little bit of a horror trope, but I'm just thinking of the scene in the third episode where the thing that is said to be the head of an angel opens its mouth, and inside are a bunch of flashing eyes, and Kinger looks inside and is mesmerized in much the same way that this gal in the short film is. Also, I'm seeing why the sidewalk is closed. There's a few feet that have been, like, removed for maintenance, I assume. I don't know. I guess I don't see why the entire fucking sidewalk needs to be closed for that, but maybe the idea is if you're, like, riding bike along the sidewalk, you get to that point, it'd be a little inconvenient to turn around. I don't know. Anyway, just the idea that just the fact that it's the mouth specifically that entrances the character makes me think a little. But it is a little bit of a horror trope, you know, the horrifying entity that does something to, like, almost hypnotize the person that they're pursuing. But then you get a cut, and you just see her standing there staring at a black canvas. It looks like her eyes are just fucking bloodshot. Who knows, like, how much she's been blinking. She's been crying. She's clutching her rosary hard enough to draw blood. And you get a shot of the clock that says 3 fucking hours have passed. Oh, I love it. That's so perfect. That's so perfect. And here's why it's perfect. Because, like, it fits perfectly into the, like, I guess you could say, mythos that's established in this movie of, like, it is just a black canvas, and you might say you see what you want to see in it. Like, the understanding that you glean is that this wasn't some special event that happened to her specifically, or like some entity hijacked the portrait to fucking get her. What is the interpretation I take away is that she, like, the painting just has something in it that can cause that to happen, I guess. And that's likely happened to other people. Maybe not in the same way, but, you know, the entity we see in the film matches the description of the recording, still, obviously. And so, you know, like, we understand that is something that she saw and not something that necessarily happened in the real world. Like we've teased at the barrier between knowing and unknowing. For a moment, reality looked to be broken, but now it's been repaired because, like, no, see, it was just all in your head. But, you know, start thinking, 3 fucking hours, 3 hours. She stood there staring at this black canvas, sobbing. Maybe not, well, I think sobbing describes like the sound. She's been crying. She's kind of almost lost motor function. She's probably been standing there like that for 3 hours, clutching her rosary hard enough to bleed. That's gotta fucking hurt. And the obvious thought is, what in the portrait could possibly cause that kind of reaction? Because people do some, I'll say, kooky stuff when, like, they feel that they are feeling the power or presence of God. I think we've all seen those videos of those, like, really extremist churches where, like, you know, people are shouting and crying. The pastor will wave his hand and people will fucking fling themselves back or get flung back. Who's to say? There's that documentary Jesus Camp where children are doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think we do always need to be conscious of, like, fraud, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like, we know that a lot of spiritual healing is just pastors finding actors to pretend that they were sick and then healed. That certainly happens. But I also don't think we can say that's what's happening in literally every instance of this. I think we have to recognize that a lot of people are very strongly compelled by the idea of God touching them and fully believe that they are feeling the influence of a divine being, which would be extremely overwhelming and extremely emotional. What I'm trying to say is I don't think they're faking it. It'd be quite the fucking thing to fake, you know? Now, speaking, yes, I know. There's another talking barricade here. Speaking from my own perspective, my own God almost certainly isn't real perspective, I do think that it's in their heads. I don't believe they're actually being touched by a divine being. I just think that the brain is extremely powerful and mysterious and prone to manipulation. That being said, not only am I willing to suspend some disbelief for the sake of the story, but standing there for 3 hours, you know, clutching a rosary until your hands bleed with, you know, no one watching, no one else influencing you, that's something a little different. I'd, like, almost say that part of what's going on in those really crazy sermons you see is, like, groupthink, or almost a, like, localized form of mass hysteria. I can guarantee you that the energy of the crowd and the energy of the people around them who are all contributing to this are contributing to that really intense emotion. You know, people talk about, like, even if they don't drink, if a bunch of people are drunk around them, they can start acting drunk. In a fucking sports game, the energy is so goddamn high because, you know, energy compounds upon energy compounds upon energy. A few people being excited turns into a lot of fucking people being excited, and they all excite each other. It's just kind of something humans do. It's something that happens with us, you know? But she's alone in that room. She's not being affected by groupthink. She's not performing for anyone. Something about that portrait moved her to the point of forgetting her physical reality for 3 hours. And I just think that's really fucking compelling. And that's where a lot of the correlation between, you know, this and more Lovecraft cosmic horror, you know, shows up. Because with, you know, Lovecraftian horror, what you hear is that just the mere sight of these things makes people go insane. And I know I've seen people talk about the fact that that's a little bit mischaracterized. But you know, there is still this understanding that just seeing these entities will... Jeez, I'm getting jump scared left and right tonight. God damn. Seeing these entities will completely shatter your reality. Is this weed? No, it's licorice. Okay. Yeah, there's this understanding that seeing these entities will completely shatter your reality, and her reality looks kind of shattered to me. So that's what would, you know, maybe happen if you thought you saw or were touched by an entity who is beyond reality. Right? And I think I'm repeating myself now. So I don't know. Like, I think Portrait of God is just a fucking brilliant depiction of this idea of, you know, God as an extremely, like, frightening, compelling force, because, you know, as is said in the film itself, he probably would be. And yeah, effective cosmic horror too. I'm wondering if I should... no. I was just wondering if I should pause the recording before talking about When Science Found God, but I don't think that'll be necessary. When Science Found God. So, I'm going to be glossing over quite a bit of stuff here. Because for one, it has been a while since I've experienced this story. And for two, a lot of it is like science-y talk. I don't know how accurate it all is, but, you know, this isn't to dismiss the work of the author in the, like, first 2/3 of the story. It's just saying I don't remember it all that well. But basically, the premise is that this group of scientists have developed an extremely powerful computer. Is it a quantum computer? I think so. I remember I was just taking a peek at the story real quick before I started this. I'm pretty sure it is a quantum computer. Again, I'm not pretending to know what the fuck a quantum computer is necessarily, or what it is specifically, but very powerful computer. That's what you need to know for the sake of my retelling, which I'm again realizing I don't need to do. LMAO. Okay, so now I'm stuck. I'm so used to just like summarizing these things. Okay, so I don't know, like I could almost recount it for myself too, because again, it's been a while. I remember it was powerful enough to create like really, really convincing simulations or like virtual realities. But then people were growing concerned about like exactly how powerful this is. And also there's the question of, oh my God, that's right. Okay, yeah. I remember how this comes up now. I remember how the conflict arises is like, you know, they create extremely convincing virtual reality and even have like almost virtual worlds running at all times on the computer. And someone stops to think, hey, you know, if we can do something like this, who's to say that someone else can't? Who's to say that we're not living in that one Rick and Morty episode? If you know not what I refer to, there's a Rick and Morty episode. The premise is that like the battery that runs his car has died. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. Well, something fucking happened down in my battery, because what's powering his battery is an entire like tiny civilization. And they've got tiny civilizations running their power. And there's, I mean, I'm positive you've all heard of the theory that we're living in a simulation. It's that, you know, they've created their own simulation of reality. So if it's possible, then how do we know we're not living in one? Pretty, you know, self-evident question. I think that'd be a valid question to ask if we were to ever get to that point. You know, like, my take on it is that, like, I don't know, maybe. Maybe we are living in a simulation, but it's like, how does that affect my daily life, right? Like, okay, we live in a simulation. I still got to go to work tomorrow. You know, this is what fucking the amazing digital circus has been telling us. Even if we live in a simulation, our lives are still meaningful. Anyway, still, very valid question to bring up if you were to figure out that, you know, actually, a reality can be very, very convincingly simulated if one had a computer powerful enough. And so they get to thinking, why don't we test it? Why don't we try to do something to get the attention of the people running this show? And we'll do that by, like, breaking a law of physics. And, yeah. So, again, I'm just summarizing. I can't help it. It's just what I do. I can try to do what I did with Portrait of God and just like cut to the chase, you know, the chase being what a closing stinger. Oh, it's so good. It's executed perfectly. Like, you know, when they get that printout from the machine, which is fucking massive. That alone is pretty cool. Like, the obvious implication of the ending is that there is some kind of power above them or above humanity, and it has sent that message directly to them. A message from God, even a simple one, probably would be quite taxing on any machine that we could have. Just because, again, he's so powerful and so far removed from our material reality. It's just you know, maybe it doesn't make fucking sense from like a computer standpoint. I don't know. What it's meant to do is impress upon you the power of this being. The fact that this immensely powerful supercomputer has like serious trouble printing out a message that ends up being 8 letters long. And then, you know, they see the message and we don't know what it says. They just describe the results, which is everybody quietly goes home, and the next day they learn that someone fucking burned the lab down. Presumably because they wanted to heed the message, which can't really blame them for. You know, like, I would understand someone wanting to like disobey that order, I guess. But I also understand someone going, no, I think it's in all of our best interest to not. Saving the message for the last line of the fucking story is mwah. Turn back. God damn. One of the like ideas behind Lovecraftian horror is this like skepticism or almost combativeness against science, which makes sense when you learn about Lovecraft as a person. He was very resistant to change, scientific change and progress and all that. Obviously, you know, we're pro-science here. And, you know, their science has done so much for humanity and has genuinely, like, unveiled truths about the universe and our world that have broadened our wisdom and genuinely helped us. But I do think there are certain things that we're just never gonna know. And, you know, Lovecraft and it's almost just cosmic horror as a genre has this idea that not only are there things that science will never understand, but there's things that science shouldn't like uncover or understand. Like there's secrets best kept just for the sake of our sanity, so to speak, for the sake of our species. Like, you know, let's say tomorrow we're doing some deep sea research and oh, there's Cthulhu. Like on one hand, I'm very pro, like, give us information, right? Like, the following point is, for example, not to say that I think we should keep censoring the Epstein files or keep them locked up because there's this, like, fucking notion that, oh God, it'll shake the very foundations of our society. No, it won't. We'll learn that a bunch of billionaires are pedophiles, which we already knew, and then the world will fucking move on. It's not what I want to have happen, but I don't know. Is there much deniability at this point? Is there much reasonable deniability that the current president of the United States isn't a pedophile? We just know this. It's an open secret. And he's still there. So since Stephen Hawking is dead, so we can't do anything about that. And I know there's a bunch of other celebrities that I just don't know off the top of my head. all this is not to say that, we see we need to keep those files covered up because society will collapse if we don't. No, it won't. No, it fucking won't. Despite what Elon Musk tried to fucking say, we'd be just fine without billionaires. They're not the foundations upon which society is built. They extract value from the people who are actually building society. So, that's not like a fucking cognito hazard or whatever. Again, we already know that most of the elite are pedophiles and shit. So, Cthulhu, on the other hand, that one's a little bit more complicated because, I don't know, what do we do if we suddenly learn, there's just this thing sitting in the ocean that could wake up any day now, and God knows what would happen then. We can't fight against it. See, I think on one hand, how do you continue to function as a productive member of society knowing that? But then that gets me thinking, do we want to be productive members of this society? Not really. The true danger of Cthulhu is that it'll, make people stop going to work. And what will we do then? God, maybe we should. All right, so you've heard it here first. The coronavirus is cosmic horror. Maybe one day I'll elaborate on those two statements that I've made, because I don't know, maybe there's something there. I think there might be something there. Anyway, because the immediate thing you think is, okay, Cthulhu is real. So why do I have to go to work tomorrow if he could wake up tomorrow? I could be sitting in the fucking office when our, overlord from 30 galaxies out wakes up and decides he wants to enslave all of us. It's like, God, it's not even my fucking lunch break yet. Do we have to do this now? Right? I think a lot of us would just say, oh, okay, fuck it. The timer is right there. We've kind of got a lot of timers above our heads, but they're pretty intangible. They're pretty hard to spot. Climate change is real. It's happening, and we're seeing the effects, but it's so far away, and it's it's still getting cold out, and what am I supposed to do? So, I'll be clocking in at 9 tomorrow, just in case we happen to live through this. We just have thousands of world-ending missiles sitting in silos around the world, and there have been missteps before that have almost fired one of them off, and any one missile accidentally launching probably means Armageddon. But I don't know, maybe that just won't happen. So I should probably keep, saving up money and investing in my 401k. It'd be a little harder to do that if on the news tomorrow we got Cthulhu's real. And so, I do think that a lot of people, probably including me, would go, okay, what are we doing here then? Again, the foundation of your reality are shattered. I have to contend with the fact that there is a godlike being that exists, and I have to contend with the fact that now the kind of reality I've settled myself into doesn't really matter. I try to be careful about that word, because again, I've watched The Amazing Digital Circus, even if this is all a simulation, and in real life, all of our actions amount to nothing if you skip forward a million years or whatever, but we still matter. If Cthulhu was real, we would still matter and our actions would matter, but I don't know, I guess it'd just be a little bit of a bummer, you know? Where was I going with this? I don't know. I know I was talking about the turn back message. You know, a pretty clear sign from the powers above, like, hey, I see you trying to fuck with our shit, knock it off. What I immediately think is they might be saying that, like, for our own good, perhaps. If you go with the, like, cosmic horror angle of there are things we are not meant to know, then they might be saying turn back to say, like, the shit you're fucking with will unveil things that will, like, literally blow your mind. Like, your brain will literally explode. Because, you know, the phrase turn back is, I believe, very intentionally reminiscent of, like, navigation, you know, orders to physically move a, like, different way. The imagery that comes to mind is that in making this computer and in exploring all these possibilities, they're on a boat sailing through dark, uncharted waters, and this higher power is telling them, turn back, turn the boat around. What is beyond these waters is not meant for you to see. You shouldn't see it, perhaps for your own good. Or maybe they're just saying, like, hey, stop fucking with our shit, knock it off. I don't know. You know, I've seen, like, Cthulhu-like entities and other cosmic horror like that be conceptualized as, like, imagine if ants started talking to you, right? Like as in you're a Cthulhu-like entity, just this being that holds immense power in relation to an ant, and you see them as just insignificant beings that mean very, very little to you in your day-to-day life. But I don't know if one of them built a little contraption that would, like, make a little noise just to get your attention, to see if you're there. I think you'd think it's, like, a little annoying, and you'd tell them, hey, just, like, do you have to be doing that? Can you stop? Right? Like, you're not going to put all that much effort into stopping them unless they really start pissing you off. You know, the message that they send taxes the ultra powerful supercomputer, but maybe it was just like a text message that these cosmic beings barely thought about, you know? Because, again, like, part of the horror of cosmic horror is that we think of ourselves as humans as very, very powerful and important. And the idea that there's an entity out there who will barely acknowledge us because they're so far above us, you know, it scares us a little. I gotta be real with you, I'm getting tired and my back's starting to hurt. I've been walking for an hour and 15 minutes. Wowie. Okay, when science found God, it's just that is the first piece of cosmic horror that made me go, okay, that's what I want. Because I think the through line that you might start to see here, which maybe doesn't work completely with Portrait of God, is that I personally really like it when the being or the quote-unquote threat in cosmic horror isn't even like a tangible thing, right? When science found God, you don't know what God looks like. You don't even really know what it's up to or what it thinks. There's really nothing to like grasp onto. All you get is the message and what it does to the computer. That's it. But that message and what it does to the computer is, I guess you could say, proof or evidence that it exists. And the mere fact of its existence is what makes it scary. Portrait of God. There's a duck. You get, you see a thing. Sorry. You see a thing that I've been calling God, but just knowing that it is God and knowing that it apparently came out of a painting and knowing that in reality there might have just been nothing there and it's all in her head leads you to the conclusion that, well, whatever entity God is, or that is, probably doesn't have an actual tangible form, and that's just the form it takes to reveal itself to people on the occasion that it decides it wants to. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, Portrait of God is just like the perfect manifestation of that to me. All you see is its effects, and all you have to grasp onto is the implications of it existing. And the implications of it existing is that there is something above us. It saw us, and it doesn't want to be seen in turn. That really plays into the fear of the unknown. That really plays into like the human ego. And yeah, I just think it's really, really fucking neat. And I thought it was neat enough to write a short story that was very heavily inspired by it. I could always post it to my blog, I suppose, as like a conjoined thing here. Like, I'm almost positive I still have it on my computer somewhere. I don't think it's great. I wrote it when I was in, I think it was my freshman year of college that I wrote that story. Again, very, very heavily inspired by When Science Found God. It's almost like my attempt to capture that kind of horror and grapple with this idea of a group of scientists finding God. Like, I'm not going to pretend it's an extremely original work, but give me a break. I had heard this story and thought it was really fucking cool, and I had to write a short story for an assignment, so that's what I did. Yeah, I can dig it up and post it on my blog with the disclaimer that, hey, my writing quality didn't suddenly dip for no reason. I wrote this years ago. Yeah. I'm very tired, so that's kind of all I'm gonna have for now. I hope you enjoyed those pieces. I hope you enjoyed me fucking yapping about them. Take care of yourselves. Peace. So, okay, I just stopped the recording. I was about finished, but I just want to add a quick addendum here, which also serves as a little bit of a plug. I wrote another short story very recently that I think is probably better than the other one that I wrote. I'm pretty sure my title was out there. But anyway, the title of this most recent one is Roaring Thunder, and not a lot of people read it. I worked really hard on it. And so I'd like it if people read it. But the reason I bring it up is because thinking about it, I did incorporate some of my ideal forms of cosmic horror into that story. Actually, I could describe how, but instead, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Say like, hey, if you want an idea of what I like to see in horror, or just like really creature stuff, even read Out There, which I'm gonna post at some point, and read Roaring Thunder, which is currently on my blog, and the link to my blog will be in the description. Now, don't forget to like,